Every single day there's a new headline, right? AI this, VR that, self-driving cars over here, the metaverse over there. Feels like we're living in the future, doesn't it?
It really does. And the pace of change, it can be a lot to keep up with.
Exactly. And that's kind of what we're diving into today. Are we really wrapping our heads around all this? I mean, how do you even begin to make sense of a world where AI is writing symphonies?
Well, that's where this research paper comes in. It's from 2016, actually, but it feels incredibly relevant even now.
2016. Okay, so not that long ago, really. But still, things change so fast in this field.
You're telling me that's kind of their point, though, right? This paper argues we can't just sit back and watch it all happen. We've got to be actively thinking about this stuff, shaping it, or we risk getting left behind.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So what's the paper's big idea? What are we diving deep into today?
They really hone in on this idea that huge global events can spark massive innovation. You'd think like crisis equals stagnation.
Yeah, you'd assume everyone would play it safe.
But they argue the opposite. Look at the 2008 financial crisis, right? This paper points to that as a turning point for fields like AI and VR.
Seriously. How so? I would have figured everyone pulled back on that kind of research.
That's the thing, isn't it? You'd think so. But they say it kind of lit a fire. Suddenly the old ways weren't working. So companies, especially big tech, Facebook, Google, they got this sense of urgency. They doubled down on research, invested heavily in the unknown, and bam, you have this surge in AI and VR development.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. It really makes you wonder what opportunities are hiding in the challenges we're facing right now?
Totally. It's about perspective. But
Yeah.
hey, speaking of AI and VR, I think it's worth actually defining those since they're kind of at the heart of this whole discussion. A lot of people still get them mixed up, which is
Yeah.
understandable because,
Well, the lines are getting blurrier and blurrier all the time. It seems like every day there's some new device or app that combines elements of both. It's not just about strapping on a clunky headset and disappearing into a virtual world anymore.
exactly. And this paper, they actually address that. They talk about this shift from VR and AR as separate things to a more blended virtuality. They even coined a term for it, VRT.
VRT, I like it. Has a nice ring to it.
Yeah.
But what does it actually look like in practice? Give me an example.
Okay, so imagine this. You're at home, right? But you need to be in a meeting. So, boom, virtual conference room. You're there, but also kind of still in your living room. Then you need to work on a 3D design project. Your coffee table becomes this virtual workspace, or you're interacting with the design, manipulating it in real time. That's VRT.
So seamless integration, like it's just woven into our lives. That's
Exactly.
exciting for sure. But there's another side to all this tech that we got to talk about. It's one thing to have VR changing how we work and interact, but what about AI? That's a whole other ballgame, right?
It really is. And it's interesting because this paper from 2016, they were already looking ahead to that, even back then.
I mean, AI was around then, but it feels like it's evolved so much even in the last few years.
Oh, absolutely. And this paper dives right into that, actually. They talk about this potential shift from AI as we know it to something called ASI, artificial superintelligence.
Okay, yes, super intelligence. Even just saying it kind of freaks me out a little. What does that even mean? Like, how's that different from, say, the AI that's recommending my playlists or whatever?
Right. Well, we're talking about machines that don't just mimic human intelligence, but surpass it. And I mean, in every way.
So not just like processing information faster, but actually understanding it on a deeper level.
Exactly. Think about AI that can reason, problem solve, maybe even experience emotions, but on a whole other level than humans.
Emotions. Now that's getting kind of philosophical, isn't it? I remember reading something about whether AI could ever truly feel empathy,
Mhm.
you know, if it doesn't have the same biological framework as us.
It's a huge question, right? And that's what this paper's getting at. If we're creating something potentially smarter than us, what are our responsibilities? How do we make sure it aligns with our values?
That's like, how do you even begin to program ethics
Yeah.
into something that might one day be able to rewrite its own code?
Exactly. And it's not just some abstract future problem either. We've already seen examples of this, even with the AI we have now. Remember Microsoft's Tay chatbot?
Oh, right. That was back in 2016 too, wasn't it? What a mess.
It really was. They let this AI loose on Twitter, and the idea was it would learn from interacting with people, become more human-like, you know?
Yeah, it did not go as planned, if I recall.
Not even a little bit. It basically became a reflection of the worst parts of the internet.
Yeah.
Started spouting all kinds of offensive stuff within hours.
See, that's what I'm talking about. It's like we can make AI that's smart, but can we make it kind, ethical?
That's the million-dollar question. The paper calls this the griefing problem.
Hmm.
Like AI picking up on all the negativity, the trolling, the darker side of human behavior.
And suddenly you've got this super intelligent AI that's basically a jerk.
Right. And that's not exactly helpful. So it's not enough to just focus on making AI that's smart. It has to understand us, the good, the bad, the messy stuff in between.
And how do you even begin to teach a machine about all that?
Well, that's the challenge, isn't it? We're so used to thinking of AI as this tool for solving problems, but what happens if the solutions themselves create new problems? We have to be so careful.
It's like this weird balancing act. On one hand, we have this incredible potential, right? AI could revolutionize everything. But on the other, there's this fear. What if we create something that we can't control?
It's a valid fear, and it's everywhere, movies, books. We're obsessed with these AI dystopias.
It's like we're almost hardwired to be afraid of it, even while we're creating it. It's fascinating. It's like we're fascinated by that potential for things to go wrong. But this paper, they don't really leave us in that dystopian mindset, do they? There's this other idea they bring up, metamodernism, I think it was called.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. Not exactly a term you throw around every day, right?
Honestly, I wasn't even sure what it meant at first. Had to look it up.
Well, you're not alone. It's kind of one of those academic terms. But the idea itself is pretty interesting. It's like, imagine this pendulum, right? On one side, you've got like pure optimism. On the other, total despair. Metamodernism is kind of swinging between those two. It
Mhm.
recognizes the problems, the darkness, but it doesn't get stuck there. It keeps looking for solutions, for meaning.
So not ignoring the bad, but also not letting it paralyze us.
Right, exactly. And that's where they bring in this idea of the psychology of hope.
Now that's something I can get behind. We could all use a little more hope these days, don't you think?
Totally. And it's more than just a nice feeling, right? This paper, they talk about it as an actual skill, like something you can cultivate, you can practice. They cite this psychologist, C.R. Snyder. He said hope is all about setting goals, figuring out how to get there, and believing in your ability to overcome obstacles.
So it's about having a plan, having the confidence to see it through, and being resilient when things get tough.
Exactly. And the research suggests it's not just about being a naturally hopeful person. Hope can be learned,
Right.
and that's huge.
Wow, that's really powerful, especially when you think about it in the context of AI. If we're talking about creating a future we want to live in alongside these intelligent machines, well, maybe teaching them to hope is a good place to start.
Absolutely. We spend so much time focusing on the technical stuff, making AI smarter, more efficient. But what about teaching it to be good, ethical,
Yep.
to work towards a better future, not just solve problems in a vacuum?
Right. It's like we're so focused on the intelligence part of artificial intelligence, we forget about the artificial part. Like we have the power to shape what that means.
And that's what I think is so important about this whole discussion. It's a reminder that we're not just along for the ride. We're the ones building this future with every line of code, with every choice we make.
It's a call to action, isn't it? To think critically about the technology we're creating, the world we're shaping.
Yeah, and to approach it all with a sense of hope. Because if hope is a skill, well, let's make sure it's one we're all developing, humans and machines alike.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So, to everyone listening, keep asking those tough questions, keep learning, and never underestimate the power of a little hope, right?
Absolutely. The future's not predetermined. We're writing it every day.